To help us bring the ICOACHKIDS Pledge to life, I would like to welcome Professor Sergio Lara-Bercial, co-founder of ICOACHKIDS and secretary of the ICOACHKIDS Global Movement Committee. But before we head to Sergio, be sure to post your questions and experiences of the ICOACHKIDS Pledge using the Q&A function on the conference platform. Now let's head over to Sergio. Hi, Sergio.
Hi. Listen, what an emotional video to watch there. Really great to see all the partners of ICOACHKIDS coming together to put together that video. And really my job over the next 15 or 20 minutes is to bring the ICOACHKIDS Pledge to life, okay? Now, I've got an easy job, really, to be honest. I was just going back through the list of speakers that we had yesterday. Laura Lundy, Amanda Visek, Hannah Crane, Juanita Weissensteiner, Malcolm Brown, Ann Tibat, and Roberto Martinez. I think all of them gave really great examples of how to bring the ICOACHKIDS Pledge to life. I was also saying at the end of that video that we would like to encourage coaches, clubs, national governing bodies, parents to sign up to the pledge, to commit to the pledge. And I have to say, that's what we've been trying to do ourselves. We've been trying to lead by example. So what I'm going to present over the next few minutes is my own attempt at trying to bring the ICOACHKIDS Pledge to life. It's not easy all the time, and some things work and some things don't. But I'm going to really be trying to offer a very honest and candid account of my experience with trying to apply the pledge. Now, at the same time, I know that a lot of the, well, all of the coaches that are watching the stream will have their own ideas. So please, I'd love to encourage you as I go down the list. I'd love to encourage you to actually, on the chat, start populating that chat with your own ideas as to how to bring the pledge to life in each of the items. Okay, so that's my challenge to you. As I go through the list, please make sure that you are bringing your own ideas to the chat. Okay, so on that note, what's the rationale? Why do we need the pledge in our view? To me, it's very simple, really. A lot of the times, we tend to think about sport as this magical thing that as soon as a child, comes into contact with sport or goes to a sports club, their life is going to change and be much better. Okay, this element of, it's like the magic lamp, the Aladdin genie, okay, that as soon as you touch the basketball or the football or whatever it is, your life's better. Now, we know that's not the case. We know that sport can also be a negative experience sometimes, and that for a sport to really be a positive experience and to maximize its qualities to have an impact on young people, it really looks a lot more like this, like a game of Tetris, where all the pieces have to fall into place for sport to be a positive experience. And that's what we hope that the pledge is trying to do, identifying the majority of those pieces and how they have to fall so they have a good experience. Okay, so that's just a quick reminder of what the different the 10 elements of the pledge are, for you to have a look at that there. Okay, and let's go one by one. So the first one, be child-centered. Okay, we've talked about the idea of being child-centered, really meaning that as a coach, you have to focus on the needs and the wants of the children, and that everything we do is based on what's best for them. Okay, so how do we put this into practice? Look, it's not easy, okay, because we are adults. So sometimes we struggle to see the world through the eyes of the children, but we have to make a really big effort to try and wear these children's glasses, as Chris van der Hagen would say, put the children's glasses on to really see life through their eyes and really understand how they see sport, what they need from it. Now, we know from research that amongst many things, okay, and for example, Amanda Visek was identifying 81 determinants of fun yesterday, but we know that from a lot of research, what children like from sport or why they really enjoy doing sport comes down to normally 3 things, okay? They want to have fun, okay, and that's 81 different ways of understanding fun or contributors to fun. But they want to be with their friends. That's a big motivation for a lot of children. and they want to learn something. So fun, friends, and learning. Those three things really matter to children. So it's, again, as we are developing our programs or our sessions, how much are we thinking about? How much do we consider? How fun are we making it? How much are we focusing on learning? And how much are we focusing on the social aspects of the sport? Okay, so understanding children from that perspective. Now, I'm going to give you an example. This is all the videos I'm going to show you today are from real practices, real training sessions with a variety of children. In this case, it's a bunch of 8 and 9-year-old mini basketball players, and we're looking for elements of socialization and fun. So what do? Balloons, okay? Make it a party. So let's have a look at that video for a second. There we go. Okay, so we're working on a lot of things there. We are asking them to dribble the ball, but at the same time, they have to keep the balloons in the air. So you can see from their faces that they're really enjoying it. They're getting into it, okay?
Keep dribbling, please, keep dribbling.
You would be forgiven for thinking that that's something that only applies to 8 and 9-year-olds. But what happens if we do something similar, in this case, a balloon relay race with a bunch of 15 and 16-year-olds? Pretty much the same.
Go!
So again, this is just a little warm-up. Incidentally, that Luca that was cheating is my own son. Okay. So remember, okay, be child-centered, make an effort to see the world through their eyes, and if you can't, ask them, okay? Laura Lundy yesterday, the voice of the child, make sure that you constantly ask them. We run Google Forms sometimes just like Post-it notes sometimes, but we're constantly asking the kids what they like and what they dislike from our sessions, okay? And we try to adjust, and we also give them a chance, for example, to develop their own sessions, to do their own drills, and to coach themselves sometimes, okay? Okay, so point number 2, be holistic. Now, being holistic is about really focusing much more than the athlete, seeing them as a person first, and a person is made out of, to simplify it, we simplify this into 4 areas, okay? The social side, the physical side, the emotional, and the cognitive, okay? Sometimes the social, normally we can see the physical quite well because it's in front of your eyes, okay? We can see what children are like from a physical point of view, but we sometimes don't see too much the social, cognitive, and emotional side, and we don't pay enough attention to it, but also we don't create activities or situations where those 3 areas get to develop. And we normally think about the physical and the technical stuff, but we have to find situations where we can develop them holistically. So some examples. We want to build, for example, in our basketball club, a sense of appreciation for the club and for the opportunities that the club provides, and also a sense of responsibility to keep the club as it is and to improve the club, okay? So we get them tidying up the basketball center, cleaning up the club, okay? So you can see them there. The children and their families are cleaning the basketball center, and that makes a big impact on them realizing how important it is. And obviously it develops another side to them. Now, in order to develop again this social side and this responsibility side, you're going to see a 15-year-old here coaching a bunch of 9 and 10-year-olds. And that happens regularly at the club, where always the older players come in to help when you're coaching the younger players. And we know that goes a long way. The younger players really like that, and the older players also get a lot from it. Okay. So 3, be inclusive. Okay. Now that can mean a lot of things, okay? For today, we're going to focus on the idea of being inclusive, creating sessions and programs where everyone is welcome and where everyone attending those sessions can go away having had fun, having had learned something, and having made friends, okay? Now, for example, in terms of learning, a great model that I'd like to introduce you to today is the inclusion spectrum, okay? Developed by Ken Black and Pamela Stevenson. please go and have a look at this model. But it's just really giving you some great ideas as to how to create sessions where children can be in the same group, but perhaps doing different activities or modifying certain activities. So in the end, everybody has a chance to go away with some learning and a sense of fun and achievement. And an example of how we do that, for example, in this basketball session that we got for 9 and 10-year-olds on a Friday night, we have like 2 groups in one group, a group of more experienced players and a group of less experienced players. The less experienced players need more support. So at some point we separate them from the more experienced, and we have the coaches provide the support as the games go on. So you can see how the coach is there supporting them, and we make them go 3-on-3, so they've got many more opportunities to get a touch of the ball, and the coach can then direct where the ball goes a little bit more to give everybody an opportunity. So in this case, the coach is the mediator of the learning a little bit. Okay. Number 4, okay, make it fun and safe. Okay, we said before that fun is central to children enjoying sport. Okay, but also the safety element is fundamental. We know that when the brain feels threatened, when we feel that there is a threat, a danger to our life, and that could be an emotional threat or a physical threat, our capacity to learn closes. Okay, so we have to make sure that the environment that we create, the motivational climate, how do we treat people, what kind of relationships we build, how do we behave in front of the children, what kind of tone we use, is super important to create that safe environment where children can learn and have fun. There is even a more important point here around creating the safeguards that are going to make sure that no child comes to any harm during the sport activities. And we know that could be just from the point of view of a traditional risk assessment, where we are trying to make sure that the facilities fit for purpose. But also we know that we have to protect children from adults, really, and from other children, in terms of we know, unfortunately, there is a lot of cases of abuse that we have to be proactive in supporting or in protecting children against. And Anne Tibas spoke at length about this yesterday. But if we follow on with the idea of just the fun, the sheer fun, and Amanda talked a lot about this yesterday, just some key examples of things that kill the fun. Okay, when we talk too long, when we make children wait in long lines, or when we make them just repeat an activity mindlessly for minutes and minutes and minutes. Okay, at the same time, we know that some things can make things quite fun. So playground games, giving drills and activities funny names, building stories around the activities, or having some fun competitions. These are all things, as you know, that can increase the fun in what we do. And that's really important if we want to keep children coming to sport. Number 5, prioritize the love for sport over learning sport. And Phil, who's going to come on after me, mentioned before in the chat that this was an important quote, or maybe it was Tiago, I'm not sure now. But really, this is about making sure that we don't focus so much on the learning that we take over from the fun, but that we take away from the fun, that we teach in a way that what we're trying to do is really, if we want them to learn, first they have to fall in love with the activity. Again, we know from neuroscience that we learn much quicker those things that we are fascinated by, that we love. Okay, so really, let's go out there and focus on creating that love for the sport, and then we can think about the learning. For example, traditional pedagogies in sport, traditional ways of teaching or coaching have been around the idea of doing drills and being very repetitive and being very deliberate about the learning and doing activities that are very regimented. And we know that that can be boring for children. We're not saying don't do any of that, okay? But have a good balance between that and activities that are much more game-based, much more about playful learning, variable activities that are unpredictable and you know, that tend to be more fun. So, for example, like I said, I don't mean don't do any of the others, okay? Don't do any of the drills. I actually like to mix them up. So in this game that you're going to see now, on the way up is a more traditional drill going through cones with the basketball. On the way back is a much more game-based scenario. So you can combine them and get the best of both worlds, because both types are really interesting. So they're practicing the ball handling on the way up.
Lovely.
And then it's a more live situation on the way back, having to actually beat defenders on the way back. So you can mix them up.
Nice.
All right. Number 6, focus on foundational skills. Again, particularly with younger children, we tend to see coaches that are focusing so much on their own sport that sometimes we forget that actually there is a foundation of movement skills and tactical skills, or play skill as we call them, that really go together to develop the sport specific skills. So in the movement skills, stability, object control, locomotion. In the play skills, the idea of spacing, timing, tracking, anticipating, things that are important to every sport, and that therefore we have to try and build the foundation of those. And you can do those that in a fun way, or in a dry way. Okay, so in this case, you're going to see a relatively dry way, but can be used as a warm-up to build their movement skills, so they can move safely and efficiently. Okay, so there's a number of stations here as part of a basketball warm-up. Okay, and you see there are 6 different stations working on 6 different types of movement. And now you're going to see a couple of children working on movement skills, but also tactical skills in terms of tracking another player, for example, in a very playful game. So one is trying to tag the other, and they have to track each other's movements while dribbling the basketball and moving sideways.
3, 2, 1, start!
All right. So you can combine these things. Now, number 7, my favorite, engage parents positively. Okay, we have to go away from this idea of the parents being a bit like in the Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. Okay, the coach on one side, the parent on the other, fighting all the time, and actually realize that both have the same goal, which is do whatever is best for the child. Okay, so we have to engage them, and what we've tried really, and very successfully, I have to say, is to be very proactive in our communication with parents. So we bring them together for workshops, and now we have to do these online, unfortunately. But look, it really is about being proactive, and providing parents with an opportunity to ask questions, with a bit of an education around what it means to take part in sport, particularly if their kids are playing sport at a high level, like it is our case. But also we want to bring the parents into the fun. Okay, so let's organize sessions where the parents and the kids can come together. Okay, so we have parent and child sessions sometimes where we can work together. And we also recruit them into coaching. So that's one of our last themes for a couple of years. And 4 of those coaches, but for the 4 assistant coaches, 3 of them were parents that we recruited into the club, from the sideline into coaching. And the other one was a primary school teacher that used to be also a player at the club. Okay, so always find ways to include the parents. Number 8, plan progressive programs. Really, really important that we need to understand that we can't really teach them everything in one go, and that we have to give time for the bananas to mature. Okay, so if we are coaching a green banana, we have to do something very different to what we're doing with a yellow banana or a very mature banana. Okay, so really, really take, as Malcolm Brown said yesterday, be patient and take your time and let the bananas mature slowly but surely, and plan for that development. Okay, don't be too ad hoc. Really plan for the development. And in my case, for example, I've got a very clear idea of, as we go through the ages, what I want to coach as they get older. Okay, and that's what we're trying to do at the club, that we build progressively from one age group to the next, rather than trying to teach them everything in one go. Number 9, use different methods to enhance learning. A little bit related to what we said earlier about mixing the drill-based approach with the games-based approach, but we like to take it even a bit further. Because now we talked about, okay, so there's that kind of debate between drills and games, but also there's a lot of other opportunities where children can learn. And two that we are exploring a lot is the idea of peer coaching and self-coaching. So we really want to put a lot of responsibility on children as they get older to be able to coach themselves, either individually or as a team, but also to coach each other. And I'm just going to play you a quick example of activities that we do to encourage that. Just watch them coaching themselves. You'll be amazed at how good children are at coaching themselves. If you give them a little bit of responsibility, you'll see how good they are, how much they actually enjoy taking that responsibility and making it work. If you've never tried it, please do try it. We even now, we don't do pre-game talks, team talks, they do them themselves. And even at times in the middle of timeout, we let them take the timeout and really encourage their responsibility and their own thinking. And finally, the idea of using competition in a developmental way. Well, competition is neither good nor bad. Okay, it's all about the format and the management and how we present that competition to the children and how well that competition fits the developmental stage of the child. Okay, and in that sense, we really would encourage you to try different formats to see what fits your children best. Now, one thing that we really know is that whereas old people like being on benches, young people don't. So whatever form of competition, make sure that it maximizes the amount of time children get to play. And that way they will be much happier and they will make a return to sport all the time. So that's everything. I hope you really think through the 10 points of the pledge and give us your thoughts in the chat, and I'll see you. I'll see what questions you have. Thank you.
Sergio, thank you so much for your, well, first of all, leading by example and helping us to understand how we can bring the ICOACHKIDS Pledge to life. For the audience, we have some time for questions, so keep them coming in, but I'll start by asking a few. The first in the chat comes from Guillermo, who has asked, how do you keep yourself in check to guarantee that you live the pledge? And how explicit are the 10 elements of the pledge in your own planning?
That's a great question. The main, you have to just go back to the 10 points every now and again. And thankfully, I think in my case, because together with some other people, we wrote the 10 points. They're quite present in my mind all the time, okay? But you really, the point about the planning is central. It is really important to actually, while you're planning your sessions, because the danger is always that we feel that, again, because this idea of sport being magic, that all these things are going to happen, but actually planning for them to happen is really important, okay? You might be a really nice person and your sport might be the best sport in the world, but you really have to plan for some of these other things to happen, or otherwise they won't happen, or you won't be guaranteed that they're going to happen, okay? So definitely spending time in the planning, thinking how you're going to make it happen is really important.
And I guess as well as waiting for the players to ripen as bananas, as you have alluded to quite nicely, I guess, is there an element of patience from the coach to help as they start to implement these ideas, to start them really coming through, not only in your practice, but also with those values being embedded with the groups that you have?
Yeah, and for me, one thing that we always say, like when you look at the 10 items of the pledge, okay, when you put them all together, you'd be forgiven for thinking that it's like a spinning plates, and you have to do all these things, and if that plate falls, the other one, and I would just say, look, look at the 10 elements of the pledge and do a bit of a self-assessment, if you want. Where are you doing really well already? Because I'm sure that you'll be doing very well in many of them, okay? And then which one? Pick one that you think you want to make a difference over the next couple of weeks, and then give it a try and see what happens. And when you are done with that one, then take another one. Don't try and make it all happen at once, because that will be very, very painful.
And I guess that's hard for the coach on their own. And Zoran has asked a brilliant question, asking, how do you go about encouraging the other coaches within your group, within your team, to also take on, embody, and practice these 10 core rules?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because you're not gonna win this battle on your own. If you want, you're gonna have to. We always go back to the idea of communication. And that can be very explicit, where you actually sit down and have a conversation around the pledge and or certain items of the pledge, or it might be more a bit of a, if you want, guerrilla warfare, where you're gonna lead by example, and then sort of ask them, what do you think about what I did there today? So, for example, when I started doing when I started really going all out on this self-coaching, and giving kids a chance to, in the middle of a session, just coach themselves or call a timeout and just take time for themselves. I started asking my fellow coaches, how do you think that's working? Do you think they enjoy doing that? What do you think they get from it? Okay. So you can do it in two ways. You can be very explicit, or you can do something and then ask for the opinion. Do you think that's a good idea? What do you think they're getting from that? Yeah.
And I guess we've had a question from Richard as well. Obviously, these 10 golden rules were born out of a literature review, 4 years ago now, quite some time. Are these rules set in stone? Do you see these evolving over time? Do you see any new rules coming in based on your experiences over the past 5 years?
That is a really, really good question, and something that sometimes keeps me awake at night. I do think that the rules will evolve. I think that although these 10, as they currently stand, provide a really good starting point for anyone wanting to go in this direction, it will come to a point where we have to reassess and see. I think the 10 will still stand, but whether we can shape them in a different way, or whether we can add or bring new things into them, for sure, it's something that the pledge is a life document, if you want. It's something that will constantly evolve.
And we've heard a lot over the past 2 days about the importance of fun and the importance of the children being heard. It was 81 different variables of fun that Amanda shared with us yesterday. We've had a question in the chat asking, what are your top tips for creating fun learning environments?
Yeah, well, I mean, after what Amanda presented last night, I'm going to be very careful here, because obviously fun can be interpreted or promoted in very different ways. Okay. At a very basic level, fun is something that is inherently, inherently enjoyable. Okay, something that we do because we like doing it, and because without having to think whether there's any personal gain in it or not. Okay, so at that level, I'd say playfulness is a fantastic element of fun. So can you think of anything that you currently do that you don't think your players or your athletes particularly enjoy doing, and whether there is a way to transform that activity so the goals, the objectives are still the same, but the way to get to them is a bit more playful? Is that possible? So, for example, the video that I showed, I really want my young players to really develop good ball handling skills. But if all I do is have them go through cones, they're not coming back next week. Now, my solution to that was, wait, can I create a number of activities where, on the one hand, they are doing, they first do the activity dry and then go into a live or semi-live element. So bringing that playfulness there is really important. And for me, the second bit about fun, goes back to something that Roberto Martinez said yesterday: relationships. Right? If your individual relationship with that child is positive, and if the relationship between all the children is positive, whatever you do, it will be perceived as fun, because it forms part of a social environment where they all feel connected. So to me, that's another way of, if you want, getting away with less fun activities, because they are done in an environment that is seen by them as safe and social.
Sergio, thank you so much for your insights. That's all the time we have for questions, but I know you'll be sticking with us for a little longer. So please feel free to head over the chat and Q&A to answer some of the outstanding questions that we have. Thank you to both you and the iCoachKids founding members for all of the work that you do in putting kids first in sport and continuing to bring these 10 golden rules to life.
Thank you.